It has been more than 5 years since my ex-wife, Adelia Lynn Masters, who worked as a branch manager at Bank of America, asked for a divorce. Her reason was simple. She didn't love me anymore. She insisted that there was no outside interference, explaining our separation by saying that we had drifted apart over time. Despite my suspicions, I could not find any evidence to confirm my doubts. We agreed on joint custody of our daughters, who were 14 and 12 years old at the time. During private conversations with professionals, both girls decided to live with her. I remembered all of this because an article appeared in the U.S. Today newspaper, which I subscribed to on Thursday morning. It was an article about the junior vice president of the regional office, Adelia Lynn Peterson, and her husband, senior vice president Ronald Peterson, attending a charity event in New York. Another photograph showed Adelia's daughters, Amanda and Miranda Peterson, aged 19 and 17, elegantly dressed and described as promising young women. It seemed that Adelia had finally achieved the status and prestige she had always dreamed of. The article said she was in great demand in social circles. Interestingly, her current husband, who was once a casual acquaintance of mine, was also mentioned. They met when Adelia started working with him at the local branch of Bank of America. Once these girls were my daughters, but now we lived different lives and bore different surnames. I immediately called my reliable assistant, Helen Beard, to the office to confirm what my eyes were telling me. If my suspicions were correct, it would shed light on why our attempts to find them were in vain. However, Helen, who turned out to be a distant relative of my wife, was absent that day due to personal business. On the day of our divorce, Adelia did not appear in the courtroom, leaving me to ponder the fate of our family. I consulted with a lawyer to understand the reasons before proceeding with the case. Without her, the judge demanded that both of us be present to confirm that the information provided by our lawyers had been agreed upon. But my wife's lawyer informed me that she had been transferred out of state. When I was asked if I had given permission for our children to move, I replied in the negative. This was the beginning of a nightmare. Judge Donald McDonald's behavior immediately changed after being informed of this information. He asked me to try to contact her on her cell phone. After leaving the courtroom, I dialed the numbers I had, but found they were no longer in service. When I went to their Facebook pages for answers, I discovered I had been unfriended and blocked. Upon returning to the courtroom, I immediately informed my lawyer, who reported it to the judge without hesitation. The judge promptly issued an arrest warrant for my wife, citing child abduction. He suspended the divorce proceedings until she personally appeared in court. Her lawyer was furious and tried to appeal to the judge's sense of justice to reconsider the decision. The lawyer argued that this issue was not significant since Mr. Masters. That is, I could confirm our agreement. The judge acknowledged my testimony, stating I had not consented to the children leaving the state. The lawyer objected, suggesting I might be lying. That's why she should be here. He stressed, adding that both daughters should also be present during the police investigation. I was informed that according to her family, she had requested a job transfer due to undoing abuse of our daughters by employees at the local Bank of America. As it turned out, this was readily confirmed by these employees. When the police demanded evidence, no one was able to provide it. Everything was based on Adelia's repeated statements, which were unquestioningly accepted as fact. The ladies from our extended family knew Adelius very well. When they were asked about these accusations in private, they answered the same thing. What does it matter? I'm just a man. Even the social services that interviewed the children did not know about this new accusation, since none of the girls mentioned me despite careful questioning. Nothing hinted at the truth. Despite this, rumors have continued to circulate in our city thanks to members of Adelius's extended family. Over the past 5 years, the judge and I kept in touch, which led to the development of friendly relations due to our shared love of fly fishing. Therefore, it is not surprising that one evening after dinner, I went to his house with a newspaper in my hands. "You need to look at something," I said in a serious tone, showing in the article. "Damn it!" the judge exclaimed, quickly taking out his cell phone. "John, I need a few minutes, please." The photo showed my 2 daughters. The judge turned pale. My God, they were right in front of us the whole time. I went outside and sat in their courtyard. Ruth came out with a beer for each of us. "He's furious." "I've never seen him so angry," Ruth said. "He's on the phone with the FBI," I replied. "What did you tell him?" Ruth asked. "I showed him a photo from today's newspaper which shows my missing wife with her new husband. For 5 years we have had no signs that she is alive." As I continued to look at the second photo on the page, I noticed that my daughter now had a different last name. It became clear that the situation was completely confused. The FBI had to be involved because interstate flight with a kidnapping charge is considered a federal crime. Ruth asked why Bank of America hadn't helped find her, to which I explained that they had received the court order from a federal appeals court judge. This ruling allowed them to challenge the court order issued to me, stating that this was a family matter and therefore not within their jurisdiction. "Tell the judge that I left because I was overwhelmed by emotions. Let him know that he can contact me at my office tomorrow morning," I said to Ruth. The previous night had been hard for me. Was there a deeper connection between them than just friendship? After our wedding, she was hired as a financial loan specialist in the department he ran. I was in the process of setting up my own consulting firm. Due to the change of surname, the question of my daughter's paternity arose. Was she really his child or mine? Did any of us know the true answer to this question? I reminded myself to slow down when I realized that a man had already been born by the time Adelia showed up at the bank. The next morning, my thoughts turned to Helen. How would she be able to fix everything? Over the past 5 years, her hostility towards her cousin had only increased. I was sure that she trusted me, as her actions repeatedly testified. I often wanted to express my feelings to her, but I held back. She deserved only the best for me. Faced with the impossible, I couldn't help but admire Helen's beauty. Her light brown hair, soft smile, and warm heart were qualities that any man could boast of. I dreamed about her, but I knew that now was not the right time. I couldn't ask her to share the nightmare I was living in with me. The next day was busy at work, and I was grateful for the distraction. But as the day went on, I couldn't shake off the feeling of impossibility that surrounded me. Towards the end of the day, there was a knock on the door, and my personal assistant came in, bringing me back to reality. "John, 2 gentlemen from the FBI have come to see you. Should I let them in?" Helen asked. Of course, I was waiting for them. I replied, getting up. When they came in, I asked, "How can I help you?" "First of all, I'm Mac Holmes, and this is Douglas Dale." Mac introduced himself. "We are here to gather some background information about this situation." I told them about how I met her current husband many years ago and explained that as far as I know, they did not have any affair at that time. The current state of their relationship, combined with my daughter's name change, created a lot of ambiguities. To find out the truth, I decided that the only solution was to conduct DNA tests on all of us. I always believed that Amanda, my eldest, was born before my wife Adelia started working at Bank of America. But now I couldn't help but wonder if Adelia had known him before I explained. It was Judge Donald McDonald who stopped the divorce proceedings, accusing her of kidnapping a child. She ignored the court's decision by not appearing at the hearing, which raised questions about whether she had filed for divorce in New York and was legally married to him. Douglas was surprised to learn that the judge did not grant a divorce. It turned out from court documents that the divorce did not take place due to the fact that she did not comply with his order to appear in court and ensure that the agreed terms were accurately set out. Judge Donald is an unshakable man who is not moved by the ignorance of others, a tree he acquired after being deceived by a dishonest lawyer in the past. I added, "Did you give your wife permission to leave the state with the children?" Mac asked. "No," I replied. It was only that day that her lawyer informed her that she had moved out of state. The judge instructed me to try to contact them by mobile phone. When I returned, I informed him that their mobile numbers were no longer in service and I had been unfriended and blocked from their Facebook profiles. She moved to another state before the divorce was finalized and remarried less than a week later. Doug exclaimed, indicating that her actions were intentional, not accidental. Mac noted that this contradicts what she claimed in her interview in New York earlier in the day. Douglas asked, "When was the last time you talked to your wife?" 2 days before the last court session, Adelia and her daughters came to pick up the last things from her house. The staff of the children's service talked with them, and the girls decided to live with their mother for the time being. I informed Mac that I had not received any legal or public notice of our divorce, and this gave us reason to believe that the signature on their adoption documents had been forged. We have grounds to charge both of them with attempting to cover up a federal crime. I have not received an answer to my question about the adoption documents. Send them Holmes. Mr. Master, could you sign your name, Helen? Please write a letter on our company letterhead confirming that I fulfilled the FBI request made by Mr. Holmes and Douglas Dale. The letter must contain confirmation that I am providing a copy of my signature in accordance with the request. Please certify the signature, make a photocopy for our files, and then provide them with the original. I asked Helen. I spoke, knowing that she was watching every word. Do you still live at the same address? Mac asked from across the room. I replied with a sigh. I had to get a court order to sell the house. The police got tired of gossip about a potential predator roaming the area, and after my second hospitalization with a heart attack, Judge McDonald froze our assets. Only after she failed to appear in court was an order issued authorizing the sale of the property. Now I live in a house that I built on Ryder Lake, located outside the city. This house creates a sense of privacy thanks to the 5 acres of land around it. To ensure my safety, I connected the house to electricity as there are still people who believe the false rumors spread by others. After the agents left, I informed Helen of the situation. She was shocked to learn that her long, awesome cousin had been found. Hope and curiosity lit up in her eyes as well as many questions that had no answers. Unfortunately, many mysteries remained unsolved, and I did not have a single and ambiguous answer. Before I leave tonight, I will turn off my mobile phone. If you need me urgently, call me at my home phone. If my absence causes you any inconvenience, please make the best decision, I told Helen. Helen despised her cousin Adelia for ruining the reputation and relationships of a decent person. I lost a lot of family and friends because of the false rumors she spread. Helen would never have thought that someone could do such harm if she hadn't seen it firsthand. She often thought about the suffering I would have to go through before the truth would prevail. It was difficult for her to wait for the situation to resolve itself. According to our observations, human nature has always preferred to lie. Many people thought that without my company I would most likely have given up long ago. I devoted all my free time to work, which led to a significant increase in the customer base, 3 times or even more. 2 years ago, I started to come out of my protective shell. Around the same time, the fresh supply of trout that I used to catch began to run out. What struck Helen the most was that until today, I hadn't mentioned the names of my wife and children since they left town. Watching me worry was just unbearable. Now I was just a shadow of the man I once was. Helen was only 14 when she first met me, a 19-year-old financial planner at a festive pre-Christmas party hosted by our family. Adelia, my future wife, had just announced our engagement, causing a flurry of excitement and intense attention towards us. However, Helen intuitively felt that our relationship was doomed from the very beginning. I prioritized the well-being of the family above all else, while Adelia was more interested in social status and recognition. It was clear that our conflicting priorities would eventually lead to a breakup. Although Helen thought my relationship was solid and believed it would last a long time, she didn't express her feelings. Helen confessed to Adelia's mother that if we ever had children, we would likely divorce as soon as they reached adolescence. It turned out that she was right. Her own marriage ended abruptly when her husband died while serving in the army, never having had the chance to start a family. In a difficult moment, she turned to me for support and advice. I was by her side during those difficult times, supported her when she said goodbye to her late husband, and comforted her in her grief. From a simple boss, I turned into her closest friend. Over the past 5 years, she has seen me go through my own hell and realized that I am the one she would like to see next to her when we grow old together. My constant struggle was related to the haunting memories of the past, which trapped me in a reality dictated by the actions of other people. The sudden disappearance of Adelia and the children gave rise to rumors that spread like wildfire, further complicating an already troubled existence. More and more people began to believe that I was involved in something sinister with my family to protect my reputation. Some suggested that the careful security measures at my place were designed to hide bodies. After a long break, I decided to stop by Ruby Tuesday for dinner. I chose the unlimited salad bar and a side dish of catfish. As I was returning to my table, Adelia's father suddenly joined me. He didn't ask for permission, he just pulled out a chair and sat down with his entire large body. I remained silent and continued to eat, refusing to engage with the person who had threatened me in the past. The public confrontation only fueled rumors about me, especially in connection with accusations of cruelty towards his granddaughters. Despite the tension, Roger Carmichael noted that his daughter was committed to resolving past conflicts related to Amanda and Miranda. Adelia confessed to me that the accusations she made against me about our children were false. She used this lie as an excuse for her sudden disappearance from the city. I feel it necessary to apologize to you for believing her. It seems she also spread this false information among our relatives, Roger said. I ask everyone she spoke to provide a notarized statement detailing what she said and her motives. Only after that, while I consider their sincerity, I replied without looking up from my plate. Roger expressed his agreement with me, saying that until someone came to his office and provided information, he would not believe them, considering the conversation pointless. He abruptly stated that until the task was completed, he considered everyone dead to himself. I accepted Roger's point of view, admitting that I understood the reason for his feelings. Roger replied that he understood my feelings and how I had been treated over the past 5 years. I asked to be left alone to eat in peace. In a cold tone, I reminded him that too many people in this city, influenced by rumors spread by their distant relatives, mistakenly believed that I should be condemned for a crime I never committed. As I watched Roger leave, I couldn't help but wonder if he truly believed that a short conversation could solve his deeply rooted problems with his daughter. Did he think that a 2-minute conversation could erase 5 years of hatred, sadness, and pain provoked by the people around us? Did they all naively believe that reconciliation could be achieved so easily? Did they really think that I was so naive that I could pretend that nothing had happened? A few minutes later, the waitress who was serving me came over and sat down at the table. "Mr. Masters, I went to school with your daughters," she began. Judging from what I just overheard, I can assure you that none of them had the slightest idea what was going on. Moreover, that Friday before they disappeared, we were all looking forward to Monday to see each other at school. She went on to say, "I saw a man who had just left working with other members of my wife's family as they were packing their things after they left. After learning this news, I felt it necessary to tell you," the waitress added. "Thank you for your frankness. It's like a stone has been lifted from my soul," I replied, not at all surprised that I had been deceived for so long. "I tried to keep a low profile because I'm tired of the gossip and lies being spread about me," I said bitterly. After giving me a sympathetic look, she returned to her duties, and I used my card to pay the bill. I decided to double the amount by giving her perhaps the best tip of the evening. I had a great time canoeing on the lake over the weekend. Every day I managed to catch the maximum number of fish, and I preferred to let the rest go back into the water. Recently, one of my favorite dishes has become fresh rainbow trout cooked with flour and butter. Every night I ate 2 steamed ones with eggs and toast. When Monday morning came, I went back to work, brewed my first cup of coffee of the day, and started reading USA Today. After not seeing any important news, I was a little disappointed, but I quickly realized that I expected too much too soon. Just at this time, Helen arrived at work half an hour earlier. For this to happen, the stars had to align differently. After pouring herself a cup of coffee and joining me, she felt particularly animated and excited about something. Helen and I started reflecting on the past, how Adelia and I tied the knot right after graduating from high school. Amanda appeared in her lives a little over a year later. In those early years, I was selling houses, buying them at low prices and selling them at high prices after repairs. Meanwhile, she started her career as a bank employee, and I immersed myself in learning the intricacies of the financial industry from scratch, recognizing my natural talent. One of the previous owners became my mentor. When the partners decided to retire, the company Masters Consulting was established. They worked with me part-time, contributing to the rapid growth of the company. With Miranda's birth, my entire future was mapped out. Helen mentioned that everyone had heard about my conversation with Roger on Friday. Her phone rang constantly all weekend. She couldn't blame them considering what my family had been through. "You have become an outcast in their family and in our society," I replied. "I have a question, boss. Why do you need notarized statements?" Helen asked with interest. I grinned and replied for Slender. "Oh my God," Helen exclaimed. "You'll take everything she has," she added with a laugh. "Isn't it worth it?" Yes, it's the only way to justify yourself and restore your reputation," Helen agreed. And by getting a court order to freeze their assets before my defamation lawsuit is considered, I will further restrict their actions. I agree with her. They will have to resort to the services of a public defender. Do you want to go to federal court with an appointed lawyer? I asked. It's going to be a busy week, boss. If everyone who contacted me really comes, we will have about 20 cases. Helen noted, adding, most of the family members are mostly decent and honest people. The problem is that they were misled and mistook the life for reality. I advised them to reflect on this during their Sunday church visit. The question remains, what will they do next? Will guilt make them do the right thing? Smiling affably, Helen, on her way to her desk, mentioned to me that some unmarried girls like to fish early in the morning. For the first time in many years, I laughed while left for work. I thanked Helen for making me smile. Helen was, and always will be, my rock. I firmly believed that without Helen, I would not have been able to survive the nightmare of the last 5 years. By Thursday afternoon, we had received 24 signed and notarized statements repeating the same story. My wife, Du whom I was only nominally married, and informed them all that she needed to leave the city because I had allegedly harassed our daughters for many years. She claimed that she had found the courage to leave in on this basis, began to force proceedings, but a simple check of court documents would have shown that her accusations were unfounded. Despite this, some people helped her secretly leave the city with her 2 daughters. Adelia promised them to remain silent, but they all admitted that they had contacted her last week in an attempt to resolve past conflicts. At the same time, they admitted that everything she said about me was untrue. It seemed to me that Adelia was more concerned with preserving the new life she had created for herself than with remorse or guilt for her actions. She seemed to go on living as if nothing had happened until I saw her picture in the newspaper. Knowing that my daughters had not contacted me, it was obvious that they believed the false information she had provided them. The most I can hope for now, given the facts that have been revealed, is to feel that justice has been done to me. I realized that with regard to my daughters, I was actually cut out of their lives, like many other family members. Having a name to work with, Helen was able to find out their current legal address, place of work, and health status. She informed me that a meeting with a civil lawyer was scheduled for 2 o'clock in the afternoon and stressed that it was important to serve Adelia before pressing charges against her. I admired Helen's thoroughness. When I thought about her request to issue a court order to freeze their assets, if she ever came face-to-face with Adelia, there would be no mercy for her. When I returned to the office at 430, I brought with me a chilled bottle of champagne and 2 elegant glasses with long stems. The case was handled by a lawyer chosen by Helen, armed with all the necessary evidence, including old court records, stenographer's notes, a judge's ruling, and sworn testimony. I gave the lawyer a copy of my wife's arrest warrant, as well as a newspaper article telling about my wife's new life. I tried to explain what kind of relationship the 3 of us have in when I first met him. The lawyer was informed that Bank of America was complying with the requirements and offered to sue them for intentionally contributing to the destruction of human life. I agreed, stating that if one claim covers the other, then I'm in. She smiled and said, "Okay, let's get started." I chuckled, knowing that we Americans tend to sue over anything. Helen and I were enjoying a bottle of good champagne that I had brought with me while we were sitting and chatting. The phone rang. Helen answered and whispered softly, "This is the judge." "Turn on the speakerphone," I asked. "Hi, Donald. How are you today?" I greeted him. "Not bad on the whole," he replied. "I wanted to inform you that next Wednesday the FBI is going to hold a jury trial against Adelia Lynn Peterson and Ronald Emerson Peterson. They also demand to issue a warrant for the detention of Miranda Peterson and oblige them all to take a blood test for DNA. Judge Donald mentioned that my eldest daughter has reached the age of majority and is no longer under their jurisdiction. Thank you for sharing this information with me." "I appreciate it," I replied. "And now about my divorce, I will offer her favorable terms as soon as she is in my presence, even if I have to do it via video link," I told Donald. "I intend to hold her accountable for her actions against you." "John, this is a serious matter," the judge said. After the conversation ended, Helen asked me, "The judge is likely to be harsh on her, but I wonder if he has the authority to send her to prison." I believe the kidnapping charges and any related charges will be brought by the FBI, but the judge may decide on a contempt charge for failure to appear, I explained. I do not know what legal options he has in this situation. I guess we just have to wait and see, Helen said sadly. I've been waiting for more than 5 years, so a few more weeks won't change anything. In addition, the lawyer I hired will have a few extra days to sort out the process and hand over the necessary papers, I said. No one seemed to have any information on the matter. The next week passed quickly, and on Thursday morning my lawyer called me and informed me that the papers had been successfully transferred. While they were working on Wednesday, she mentioned that she had successfully frozen everything in her name, including their bank accounts and assets. In the afternoon, FBI agent Doug Dale called me and asked me to stop by St. Francis Hospital to donate blood for DNA testing before 6. I gladly agreed. On Saturday morning, I was at the lake fishing and having breakfast when my cell phone rang. I saw that Helen was calling. "I need you to go to the office and get today's USA Today newspaper," she instructed. "There is an article in that Adelia, Ronald, and Miranda were detained by the FBI at one of the social events last night." She spoke. "I'm at the lake right now, but as soon as I get ashore and change, I'm going to the office to find out what's going on." My curiosity was aroused, and I needed to find out what the FBI was accusing them of. It took about an hour to get to the office, and Helen's information turned out to be correct. I was drawn in by the reporter's description. We all think we know what kidnapping is, but is our understanding correct? According to federal law, kidnapping involves the use of force, deception, or intimidation to capture or hold people against their will, often for personal gain. This is considered a serious crime with an average sentence of 12 years. Adelia and Ronald Peterson are the two who are accused of kidnapping. She left Missouri with her children without getting permission from her husband, with whom she was in the process of divorcing. According to court documents, she filed for divorce because she no longer loved him, but the judge issued a warrant for her arrest for kidnapping after she failed to appear in court at the appointed time, which caused the divorce process to be suspended. It was our report on the couple published 3 weeks ago that ultimately led to her arrest, the article says. It is evident that Adelia used the surname Masters when she married Ronald Peterson in a civil ceremony in New York shortly after leaving Missouri. It became known that the documents submitted by Ronald Peterson for the legal adoption of Amanda and Miranda Masters were drawn up and submitted to the court for approval on forged documents. Mr. John Masters' signature was forged. Now the FBI suspects that the couple organized this scheme to hide the Masters' daughters in a public place. It turned out that the couple had previously worked together at Bank of America when they were just starting their careers. Mr. John Masters tried to force the bank to disclose his wife's whereabouts, but they were issued a court order in the Court of Appeal that did not allow them to do so. Now it turns out that Ronald Peterson, senior vice president of Bank of America, used his influence to prevent his wife's ex-husband from finding out about his legitimate wife and children. We have learned that Mr. John Masters has filed a civil lawsuit against Adelia Peterson for defamation, alleging that she spread false information among more than 20 of her acquaintances and family members. The woman allegedly stated that Masters' first marriage broke up because she discovered his inappropriate behavior with her daughters. Despite the fact that local law enforcement agencies have confirmed the lack of evidence in favor of these accusations, allegations of inappropriate behavior continue to haunt Mr. Masters 5 years later. As a result, he reportedly found himself isolated from society due to the stigma associated with these accusations. One can only wonder if the situation for John Masters was really as deplorable as it seems. The article explained that 2 attempted death cases are still open. Many in the area suspect that he killed 3 people and escaped punishment. In addition, he filed a lawsuit against Bank of America and Senior Vice President Ronald Peterson for interference in marital relations. The victim's point of view must be considered. Shouldn't he get justice? Unfortunately, in our society, this is often overlooked when it comes to criminals. Opinions can be expressed, but they rarely get into the media because they do not cause resonance. Unfortunately, victims often suffer for years while criminals enjoy free housing and meals. The article was impressive. It clearly stated all the facts. As I was filling a cup of coffee, the phone rang. When I picked up the phone, I was surprised to find that it was a call from the Southeast Missouri newspaper asking me to verify the accuracy of the information provided. When the reporter asked about the last 5 years of my life, I told him about the ongoing investigation into the attack on me by unknown people, which the police qualified as attempted murder. I explained the extent of the defamatory rumors being spread about me and then turned the question back to him, asking for his opinion on what he had experienced. He called it hell, and I found that label fitting. While I was trying to come to terms with the nightmare that consumed my life, there is finally a glimmer of hope that my reputation will be restored. 5 years later, it became clear that irreparable damage had been done to my relationship with my daughters. Rumors also surfaced that sever my relationships with my own parents and brothers. I knew that as soon as this was over, I would sell my business and leave the area forever if only the one person I trusted would agree to come with me. Before leaving the office, I carefully cut out the article in photos, scanned them, and printed them out. I put them in a legal envelope so that my civil lawyer could use them in his case. Amanda Peterson was shocked when the FBI arrested her mother and stepfather, and her younger sister was taken away in another car. She was relieved when the agent took her aside and revealed the truth. Her parents had never divorced. The name change had not been approved by her real father, and he had never given up custody. As she was sure, the FBI explained that all documents with his signature turned out to be fake. Her mother was accused of taking her away without permission, and her stepfather was accused of aiding her and hiding the truth. They both faced numerous other charges. Miranda would be kept safe until they found out who her real father was, since her mother still claimed that he was her stepfather. Amanda returned to the house to gather her things. Sitting in the waiting room at St. Louis Airport, she was waiting for a connecting flight to the Cape. A headline from USA Today magazine lying on an empty chair nearby caught her attention. Curious, she picked it up and read the entire article. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. During the hour-long flight to the Cape, Amanda couldn't stop thinking about why her mother made the choices she did, especially regarding her father. Nothing seemed to make sense to her. Although her mother had detailed Ronald and their relationship online, Amanda still had unanswered questions, and her heart was heavy. She did not expect any changes in her life until her mother brought up the topic of divorce from her father. Sitting on the steps of the family home, she overheard their conversation over a cup of coffee after dinner. The mother confessed that she no longer loved her father and wanted a divorce, leaving him with a broken heart. The mother reacted to this indifferently, considering the father just another man who could be easily replaced. But recent revelations in the newspaper about his mother's past relationship with Ronald added another layer of complexity to the situation. As she watched the plane begin to descend, many questions flashed through her mind. Is there a working phone in an abandoned car rental booth at the airport? It was 11 o'clock in the morning, and Amanda Peterson was sitting in the parking lot of their former home, patiently waiting for the sheriff's department car to drive away. She had been sitting there for more than 2 hours when suddenly 2 unmarked cars blocked her way. An officer with a pistol emerged from them and demanded that she get out of the car with her hands in the air. Without hesitation, she obeyed. "Who are you? Why are you monitoring this area?" the taller officer asked. "My name is Amanda Peterson. I was just waiting for the sheriff's department to leave so I could talk to my dad," Amanda explained. "What's your father's name?" the officer clarified. "John Masters," Amanda replied. "Oh, no," the officer exclaimed in disbelief. "Tom, go tell Joe and John to make coffee. It looks like we made a mistake. The 5 of us need to have a serious talk with Miss Peterson. I'm Detective Joel Smithers," he introduced himself. "I know your father well. What made you come back here after all these years?" he asked. "This is partly due to what happened last night in the article in the USA Today newspaper. I have a copy in my car. Do you want me to bring it?" Amanda asked. "Please do. It will help me understand what you know," Joel said. After everyone introduced themselves and coffee was poured, Detective Joel Smithers read the entire article aloud. Everyone except him looked shocked. "Do you believe my father, Detective?" Amanda asked. "I belong to the minority who believed the rumors. Unfortunately, it was too late when rumors about your father began spreading among your mother's relatives. He became the target of persecution, and his house was constantly vandalized, which forced him to eventually sell it." The second incident, when he was hospitalized after a brutal attack that almost took his life, was the last straw that prompted him to move. We were lucky to find him before he bled out. The locals were ready to take revenge on him for what they thought he had done to all of you, the detective said regretfully. Your father has become a controversial figure in the eyes of many. Joe had bought the house at a bargain price, but it wasn't until he started parking the sheriff's car in the driveway that things calmed down, the detective said. So you're saying it became so unbearable for my father that he had to leave? Where does he live now? Amanda asked. Many of us in the South have our own ideas about justice. Your father now lives on 5 acres of land near Ryder Lake, the detective said. The site is completely fenced with an electric wire and secured with an electronic lock. In the 2 years that he has been living there without a job, no one has seen him in the city, Detective Joel replied. How do I contact him? Amanda asked. I think I know how, Tom said. I will ask the dispatcher to check if his company has a contact phone number. I'll be right back. A few minutes later, Tom returned with the address written on a piece of paper. I think it's my mother's cousin's phone, Amanda said. According to our emergency records, she is the only one who can contact him around the clock. I talked to her and she agreed to talk to you, but without any guarantees. One thing I've learned about Miss Beard lately is that she's tough, firm, and distant when it comes to personal communication, Tom said. Helen is fiercely protective of your father, John. If she doesn't trust you, she'll do her best to keep you away from him. She's on her way to your father's place of work right now. She said she would be waiting for you there, Tom said, giving her the address. Amanda expressed her gratitude before leaving. What kind of person can have such intense hatred for a man? John, the new owner of the house, asked. Joanne, her daughter, replied. Someone who holds him responsible for all the injustices in his life. Helen activated the voice recording app on her mobile phone as soon as the car stopped next to hers. She quickly opened the door so Amanda could enter the building. The first question I want answered, Amanda, is what happened during your disappearance and what happened to you after that? Helen asked. Amanda explained, Miranda and I were suddenly woken up by my mother early on Saturday morning at 4 o'clock. We hadn't recovered yet, but we were told to get dressed and hurry to the car. Some of our clothes were already packed inside. She informed us that we were leaving for a week on an unexpected trip to New York. I was surprised, as it was the first time I heard about it, said Amanda. It seems like you were completely unaware of what was going on. Did you know that Ronald and your mom communicated online? Helen asked. We thought it was just a friendship. I personally saw my mom talking to Ronald, but I had no idea they worked together when we were younger, Amanda replied. Mom said she met him at a regional conference and they became fast friends. It wasn't until we were halfway to our destination that I realized our phones were missing. Then I decided to ask my mom about it. She explained. She explained that the phones were turned off due to the move and the remaining balance had to be paid in full. As for the laptops, they were supposed to be packed and shipped by the movers along with the furniture during the move, but the laptops were never delivered. We spent 2 days on the road and were very tired, Amanda said in disappointment. When we arrived on the outskirts of New York, Mom told Miranda to get her new phone out of her purse, which had a New York number on it. It came as a surprise to us because we didn't know she had such a phone. Then my mom asked my sister to open Google Maps where the directions were indicated. We didn't know that we were actually directed to Ronald Peterson's house. It was only 2 hours later that we found out about his intentions. He organized a significant promotion for Mom so that they could be together, says Amanda. We were told to get rid of all things except family photos, which were sent to us later. While disassembling the car, my sister and I came across ready-made adoption documents. Ronald told me that our parents agreed to the adoption because our mom was marrying him. Later in the evening, Mom told us that we should give Ronald a chance because he is our biological father, Amanda said, lowering her head. Over time, we decided that as soon as Dad discovered Ronald's true connection with us, he felt it necessary to cut us out of his life, Amanda said with tears in her eyes. Amanda, I trust you because in recent days, I've already heard about half of what you've shared with other family members. The only confirmed information we have is that the school district has provided you with the school admission documents so that you can enroll in a new school as soon as you find a place to live. Now that Adelia has been found, the truth is starting to come out, Helen said encouragingly, taking Amanda's hand. I want to inform you that I recorded our conversation. As soon as I send it to the FBI and your father, we can go to an early dinner at Ruby Tuesdays, Helen said. While I'm doing this, take a look at these notarized statements. Think about this. If she lied to you about your father, John Masters, could she lie about Ronald Peterson as well? Helen left the room and watched Amanda for a few minutes before continuing the conversation. Amanda was shocked to learn the extent of her mother's family's conspiracy against me. Wasting no time, Helen shared the incriminating conversation with me, my lawyer, and even the FBI. I was not shocked by my daughter's arrival and was glad to meet her despite the seriousness of the situation. Amanda remained calm and balanced, addressing no one. During this turbulent time, I decided to write her an encouraging message. I'll be waiting for you when you arrive. After leaving her alone for about half an hour to read some of the statements she received from the family, she sent me a reply message saying that she had not tried to contact anyone when everything was ready. Helen returned to Amanda. Helen, do you know why my mom told the family that my dad had been bullying us for years? Asked Amanda. No one in the family approved of your father. Your mom knew. I think she used it to explain that she needed to disappear and leave, taking you and your sister with her, Helen replied. Adil, you knew that your father would be looking for you, and he did. He went so far as the Sioux Bank of America to find out your mother's whereabouts. He was successful in court, but unfortunately lost in the appeal process. We didn't know about your mother's marriage or the name change until recently, when your picture was published in the newspaper. When your father went to court again, your mother turned to the family in a desperate attempt to resolve her growing problems, Helen said. For more than 5 years, your father has been a target because of your mother's actions. There were times when we were afraid that we might lose him, Helen said, shaking her head. How is he holding up? Amanda asked with genuine concern. He became more withdrawn, lost a lot of weight, and his hair turned almost completely gray from constant stress. The hate and threats on his Facebook page became so overwhelming that he was forced to deactivate his account. He even had to remove his name from the corporate Facebook page because he was being harassed there too, Helen replied. His business and life were attacked, as a result of which he lost trust in people and became more withdrawn. Once sociable, now he trusts only a select few. Despite his freedom, he lives in fear of those who seek revenge. He goes to the city only for personal purchases, gradually rebuilding his life. Even his own family turned their backs on him, says Helen. Divorce is usually a difficult process, but what he went through was much more difficult. Many people in society still believe that he got away with killing the 3 of you, she added. Does Dad have a girlfriend? Amanda asked. Given the reputation your mother has created for him, would anyone want to date him? Helen asked. For more than 5 years, he was forced to defend himself against false accusations that he could not refute. Every time he tried to defend himself, he was met with hostility, Helen added after a short pause. His situation is worsened because they have already decided everything. He found himself alone, and her sudden disappearance only aggravated his suffering and instantly gave credibility to my mother's accusations. Adelia and Ronald have organized everything perfectly, Amanda said through tears. The only one who really suffered the consequences is your father, Helen said glumly. When Amanda was about to cry, Helen suggested they go out to eat, which would somehow alleviate the situation. For the last 5 years, she has been constantly by her father's side, but at what cost? When they reached Helen's car, Amanda stopped. Thank you, Helen, she said. Helen asked in confusion, For what? Amanda's response took her by surprise. For having the courage to love and support my father all these years, she said. The emotion she had been holding back finally burst out, and his tears streamed down Helen's face. Amanda offered her comfort. This scene played out while I was sitting in my car outside the Ruby Tuesday restaurant, looking forward to their arrival. I could hardly find the words to address my child, who might not have seen for more than 5 years. My emotions were in turmoil as I replayed Helen and Amanda's conversation in my head many times. Part of me believed what I heard, but the other part was unsure. As I watched them drive up to the restaurant, get out of the car, and walk to the front door, my hands were shaking so much that I gripped the steering wheel tightly. I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Amanda had grown up to be an amazing woman, and I saw in her the traits of my own mother. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me. They disowned me soon after they disappeared from my life. I turned off the engine and got ready for one of the shortest and most painful walks of my life. The waitress who served me a few weeks ago was now playing the role of hostess. She immediately informed me that Amanda was present, and I asked to speak with her. When we arrived, the waitress informed me that Amanda would be standing with her back to us. "Have you come to make peace?" she asked. I nodded, and she assured me that they were ready to talk. Helen noticed me immediately and greeted me with a smile. Amanda turned to face me and burst into tears. I went over to her and sat down next to her, taking her hand to calm her down. It had been more than 5 years since I'd looked into my daughter's bright blue eyes. We looked at each other in silence with tears in our eyes. There are times when words cannot express the depth of emotions. Sensing this, I asked the waitress to bring us a generous flask of their homemade wine. The waitress silently poured us the first glass and then left us alone. Amanda was amazed at how much I had transformed. I must have lost at least 40 kilograms, which made my face look longer, thinner, and older. My silver-white hair only complemented a new look that many women would envy. Amanda stood up resolutely, urging me to follow her example. We met at the edge of the table and hugged tightly. "Daddy!" she exclaimed, and I answered her with Alma, her old nickname. At that moment, we were able to melt the ice and calm our emotions. When we ordered the food, Amanda was surprised at how differently I ate. I've always been a fan of meat and potatoes, but now I've ordered a catfish dish with an unlimited number of salads. I found that I had filled my plate with salad 3 times when Helen went to fill hers. Amanda took the opportunity to talk to me alone. "Helen loves you, Dad," she said. Helen interrogated me like an experienced army sergeant, determined to make sure of my honesty before giving me another chance. I have to admit, I deserve it. Even though I'm old enough to make my own decisions, I couldn't do the right thing. "I will never forgive myself for this," Amanda said bitterly. "Over the past 5 years, I have not been able to offer anyone a life worth sharing. If at some point during this time a body had been found and one of you had been identified, I don't know how I would have coped," I replied with a lump in my throat. "Most likely, I would have ended up in prison. Many in society suspect that I could have committed a crime and escaped punishment. Therefore, 3 years ago, I decided to change my will, leaving all my property to her after the second incident when I was hospitalized due to a knife attack. I thought my life was over, but it was Helen who supported me in a difficult moment," I said. When Helen returned and saw Amanda crying, she asked what was set to inflame the situation. "It's nothing special. I told you how I was in the hospital, how you took care of me. I have revised my will, leaving everything to you. They believed that it was your love that saved me from the edge of the abyss," I replied to Helen with a gentle smile. Now there were 2 women with me, tears streaming down their faces. We had lunch together and then returned to the rented car. The ladies decided to come with me to my secluded home on Ryder Lake. They were impressed by a private house overlooking the lake for bedrooms upstairs and a spacious living room. The house has a spacious living room, an open-plan kitchen, and a laundry room on the ground floor, with the master bedroom also located on the ground level. A covered walkway connects the garage to the house, making it easier to access it. When Amanda refused my offer to help her with her luggage, I thought she wanted to leave us alone, I said. "Why didn't you tell me about your feelings earlier?" Helen asked. "I was trapped in my past," I replied. "I didn't know what would happen next. The uncertainty was more frightening than any outcome," I added. "Now that I have freed myself from the restrictions they imposed on me, I can provide you with a promising future that was previously unavailable," I happily informed. Helen grabbed my hand, her expression filled with joy. "It looks like I'm going to have to sell my house, since there's no way I can let you part with this property," Helen said, winking at me. Despite my age, I still felt guilty when my daughter caught me kissing another woman. I can confirm this because that's exactly what happened. For the next hour, we sat together, rebuilding our relationship and remembering all the moments I missed in my daughter's life. I found out that she was stuck in an unloved job in the business world while simultaneously earning a master's degree in business management online. She wasn't actively dating anyone. "Why don't you join us?" I suggested. "We have the resources and we need a new way of looking at things. You can start with a junior position and move on," Helen said. Are you really considering this possibility after everything we've put you through? Amanda asked. Absolutely, I replied with a beaming smile. For starters, we can offer you an annual salary of $45,000, I told Amanda. Wow! Looks like I'm going to have to look for a place to live, she replied. Don't worry, we have a lot of space here, I reassure her. But I will expect you to help me around the house just like before. Tears welled up in Amanda's eyes as she answered, Dad, why? I reassured her by saying, You are and have always been a big part of my life. Then I'll book a plane ticket for tomorrow to pack my things if I find a suitable option. She said, Depending on the length of the trip, I will have to arrive in my car sometime on Wednesday. Let's add both of your phone numbers to my contact list. Amanda suggested, after completing this task, Amanda received a text message from Miranda, which she showed me. The message read, My mobile phone has finally been returned to me. The FBI is detaining me until it receives a DNA report that confirms whether Ronald Peterson is my biological father or not. An expert on the letter showed how they exposed fraud and drafting the adoption agreement. Miranda said she couldn't make calls, but she could send and receive messages because she was in a secure facility. Amanda informed her that she was with Helen and me now. She's flying to New York tomorrow to pack her things as she's moving into my house and joining my firm. Below, Amanda indicated my contact phone number. Miranda replied, asking to take her laptop and things with her. Amanda asked that she could get a copy of today's USA Today newspaper as there is an article about us that she would like to read. Helen noticed that I was heading towards the terrace and joined me. How are you holding up? She asked. I feel emotionally overwhelmed, I confessed, hugging her. Why don't I take Amanda with me and grab some clothes from my house? Helen suggested. It will give you some space to deal with your emotions. She added, I sent her the program for the electronic gate lock so she could access it. I gave her the keys to the house so she could make copies, suggesting that we might need 4 of these keys. They were gone for about 2 hours, and I spent most of that time in tears. It seemed like all the pain and resentment that I'd been holding back for so long had finally burst out. When they returned to the house, I noticed a change in my behavior as if a dam had burst. I greeted them with a smile, and they smiled back at me. I was standing on the terrace and getting ready to roast thawed steaks. I had already made the salad and baked the potatoes. I watched their animated conversation while each of them brought armfuls of things. After 4 trips, they had brought a significant number of things which were now lying scattered on the master bed. During a very late dinner, I found out that Amanda was leaving at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, and Helen and I would help her move her things tomorrow. I was glad to see the girls enjoying their meal. As we sipped coffee after dinner, my cell phone suddenly rang. The only person who had this number besides those present was the FBI. I replied with a simple, hello, Mr. Masters. This is Doug Dale. I wanted to inform you that the DNA test results have confirmed that you were Miranda's father. We received confirmation about 2 hours ago and have already informed her about it. She wants to return home, so we scheduled her landing at Cape Canaveral at 7:30 on Monday morning, the agent said. I'll be there to meet her, I replied enthusiastically. This is great news. Besides, Amanda was on her way to see you last night. Please tell her that her sister saw a copy of this article on the internet, Doug added. When we broke the news to Ronald Peterson, he was shocked. Adalia had misled him into believing that Miranda was his daughter. Despite this revelation, he still faces a considerable period of time, the agent happily added. As soon as the situation calmed down, I asked about the legal names of my daughters. Their legal surname is Masters, which is confirmed by the court decision that we received on Friday morning. A copy of this ruling will be sent to your office on Monday, which will allow you to change their IDs, Doug Dale replied. That was the end of the conversation. I couldn't hold back the tears that suddenly welled up in my eyes. I was completely shocked and speechless, which made Helen and Amanda worried. Fortunately, I managed to regain my composure quickly. Miranda is scheduled to arrive at the airport at 7:30 on Monday morning. DNA tests have confirmed that she is indeed my daughter, I said. When Ronald Peterson found out about this, he was shocked because Adelia convinced him that Miranda was his child. I told you the good news, Helen expressed confidently, indicating that she had known the truth all along. I couldn't help but wonder if my ex-wife, Adelia, had ever revealed the truth to anyone. Amanda, I have sad news for you. The federal court has ruled that your adoption is invalid, so you will have to change your last name to Masters, I said with a laugh. My daughter was overjoyed and rushed into my arms with tears in her eyes. The name Peterson had never seemed appropriate to her. After saying goodbye to Amanda, who returned to New York to pack her things, we went to Jackson to meet Helen's two brothers and their wives. They kindly offered to help move the furniture that she wanted to take from the house. Since I had only 2 bedrooms furnished, there was enough room in the house for her things. We completed the task in just 1 day. The whole story was published in the Sunday edition of the Southeast Missouri newspaper. We gathered at Hickory House for dinner, where everyone noted the joy radiating from Helen. Her sister-in-law jokingly suggested that after 6 months of cooking for Helen, I would finally gain weight. The restaurant owner, our good friend, congratulated me and insisted on paying for our lunch. It seemed to me that Helen's sisters-in-law were jealous of her new home. Although Helen and I offered to invite them and their families to lunch, they all declined, but offered to attend our first housewarming party when we throw it for our extended family. We arrived at the airport at 7:15 in the morning, as the connecting flight sometimes arrived earlier. As I watched Miranda walk down the ramp from the small plane, my heart began to race. She was wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt, not at all the pigtailed girl I remembered. She had turned into an amazing young woman, and it was hard for me to understand how much she had changed. When she noticed me, her face lit up with a radiant smile, and she ran towards me. The sliding doors swung open to greet her, and with a joyful cry of "Daddy," she jumped into my arms. At that moment, emotions overwhelmed us, and we hugged tightly, both stunned by the reunion. The cameras were filming us from all sides, but we didn't pay attention to it. I overheard Helen talking to a reporter from Studio 12 about me and my daughters, the youngest of whom half the city thought I had harmed. It turned out that they had actually been abducted more than 5 years ago. The FBI has now detained their mother and her lover for this crime. This reunion marked the first time the sisters had met in 5 years. When we turned to face the reporter, Miranda introduced herself as my daughter, saying my last name is Masters. Miranda began to tell the story into the reporter's camera. 5 years ago, with the assistance of my mother's family, my sister, and our kidnapped, there were false rumors that our father bullied us, which is completely untrue. Although some members of my mother's extended family may engage in such disgusting behavior, my father is not one of them. Any attempt to harm him in the future is also an attack on me and my sister. We are a united family, and we will stand together against any injustice. During my parents' divorce, my mother told us that our father was just getting what he deserved. But none of us deserved the trauma and pain that our actions caused us. He is not only my father, but also the most truthful person I have ever met, Miranda added. I introduced Helen to Miranda. Helen hugged Miranda and shared yesterday, Amanda and I had a serious conversation about everything we learned. It seems that your mother deceived and misinformed Ronald, as well as your father, in her desire to attract attention to herself. She almost ruined 5 lives. I think it's in the past now. Amanda and I know that you and Dad are planning to get married, Miranda said with a smile, changing the subject. Helen and I agree that we want to put this situation in the past, I replied. Good, good, Helen said. Do you mind if we call you Mom? Miranda asked with tears in her eyes. Helen said you couldn't have said it better, Miranda. I agree, as long as you promise to be one of my bridesmaids. Let's have breakfast and then go to Macy's to buy clothes, I suggested. Shall we go to Denis? Miranda asked. If they're still open, of course. But the Huddles house is the nearest place to have breakfast. If you don't mind, I replied. I was amazed at how much my daughter could eat, and jokingly thought about sending her to live somewhere else. It was still unreal to me that my daughters had returned to my life in a way I never thought possible. Our house had truly become a home, and I was grateful for a second chance to find a family. While shopping at Macy's, I intentionally got lost and left. I felt out of place listening to women discussing underwear choices and sharing their feminine secrets. By the time they noticed my absence, I was already on my way back. Helen asked where I'd gone, to which I casually replied that I'd gone to the bathroom. I sat and watched Miranda try on different outfits, for some reason asking for my opinion. Personally, I thought she looked amazing in everything she tried on. After spending $300 on clothes, we left the store with 2 bags. When we returned to the house, Helen excitedly took Miranda upstairs to show her the newly furnished 4 bedrooms. Helen was overjoyed, and Miranda was admiring the rooms, clearly pleased with the result. We chose a room with suitable furniture for her bedroom. We decided to sit on the terrace to enjoy the peaceful atmosphere before the heat of the day became too strong. The ladies were drinking iced tea, and I was enjoying a cold beer. Feeling a surge of courage, I got up and walked over to Helen, putting the ring box in my pocket. "I haven't officially proposed to you yet." I began opening the box and showing off a set of 3 rings. "Will you marry me when my divorce is finalized?" Without hesitation, she happily replied, "Yes." Miranda managed to capture everything and quickly sent a photo to Amanda, along with a text confirming that the ring fit. I managed to get the ring size from her brother, and about half an hour later, an unexpected call came on Helen's phone. Miranda and I exchanged worried glances when Helen suddenly burst into tears. Embarrassed, I took her mobile phone away from her, and as soon as the caller said, "Congratulations, Dad," everything fell into place. My second daughter was on the line. "Are you underway?" I asked with a smile. "I left yesterday at 4 o'clock and have been driving almost continuously since then. There's much less traffic and police on the highway at night." "My car handles well at a little over 100 miles per hour. Please tell your sister that I have her things," Amanda said. Miranda asked how long she had to go. I told her that it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon where she was and that there wasn't much time left to go. Then Amanda asked me to accompany her. I promised to send her a text message with instructions. I was torn between a sense of pride and anxiety. It seemed like she had been driving all day without stopping. The girls were eagerly awaiting her arrival, rushing to the door even before she got out of the car. Amanda looked exhausted but otherwise unharmed. It was only when I saw my daughter standing together that emotions overwhelmed me at once. Amanda's first request was to look at Helen's wedding ring, but before she could admire it, the home phone rang and I hurried to answer it. It was my assistant, Chris. He gave me good news. "We are seeing positive shifts in our customer base as some of those we lost due to rumors are returning, and we are also acquiring many new customers, some of whom are out of state. Such an influx of business may require us to hire additional staff, which we are currently working on," he said. "My daughter Amanda will start working with us next week, and although she is still inexperienced, she is striving to get a master's degree in business management," I replied proudly. Chris offered to take her on his team, recognizing that the job would be difficult but would allow her to gain valuable experience. I agreed to hire Chris Tucker because he was a single-minded person. Having just graduated from high school, he was the best in his class and eager to prove himself. Like many of us, he faced difficulties and setbacks, but quickly recovered and achieved success. Chris soon realized that the business theories he was studying were not always applicable in real-world situations. He was humble enough to admit it and set an example for his team, forcing them to learn from their own experiences. He had a unique approach. If he saw someone making a mistake, he would stop them to explain where they had gone wrong. In his eyes, the only wrong question was the one that wasn't asked. "Helen and I will take a vacation until the end of the week. We still have a lot to settle," I announced due to the upcoming engagement and the girls' return home. It was necessary to resolve legal issues as well as enroll Miranda in school. The news of our engagement was greeted with surprise and excitement. I just remembered that we received the courier letter from the FBI. "Can you come and pick it up at 5?" I asked Chris. He replied, "Yes, thank you for reminding me. I forgot about it." In the evening, the 4 of us drove into town to celebrate our first official family dinner at Red Lobster, a place my daughters had chosen. I parked in front of our office and asked Amanda if she wanted to see where she was going to work. She readily agreed, and we all went inside. When we entered, the secretary got up from the table and led us into the largest conference room. Inside, we were greeted by a grandiose cake and a huge poster with congratulations. Amanda was introduced to her new boss, and everyone present welcomed my new extended family. My daughters have already started calling Helen Mom. We arrived at the restaurant around 6:30 in the evening, just in time for the start of their annual all-you-can-eat shrimp campaign. My daughters lost count after eating 140 shrimp and were amazed to see that I was eating raw lemons like oranges. My daughters and I sat down at the table to read the court's decision together. The judge noted that the document in question was easy to find on the internet and did not require a lawyer to create it. Moreover, handwriting experts established that the signature of John Allen Masters, that is mine, was traced in order to reproduce it. As a result of tracing, significant gaps formed in the ink flow which disrupted the natural sequence of the signature. When comparing several signatures on the same document, it became obvious that the spaces did not match in each of them. Over time, a certain pattern of behavior can be noticed in the way a person signs their name. This was noticeable in the third paragraph, where it was noted that I never used my full middle name when signing. Another clue was the fixed date of my signature, which, as the witnesses confirmed, was put after their departure from Missouri. On the second page, there was a court decision according to which Amanda and Miranda Peterson are not their legal names. During the week, we dealt with legal issues, making sure that all legal documents accurately reflected their real identities. First of all, we went to the Social Security office, then to the state's attorney's office to update their birth certificates and return their former names, and finally to the Department of Motor Vehicles to get a new driver's license reflecting their real identities. Personally, I felt great satisfaction watching the positive changes that took place at every stage of this process. On Thursday, I completed the last task. I took away their new mobile phones. The next day, Amanda and Miranda accompanied Helen and me to the Ford Growth dealership in Jackson. Helen allowed us to exchange her car as well as mine. Each of the ladies left in a Ford Escape car leased through my company. When I got home, I handed Amanda a check for the trade-in amount, which was deducted from our significant down payment. Finally, my divorce lawyer contacted me. He informed me that my daughters and I had to appear in court for a hearing scheduled for 1 o'clock on Monday afternoon. I invited my friend Helen to join us, and she readily agreed. Sitting in the courtroom, we watched Adelia Lynn Peterson on a large monitor in front of us. She looked unremarkable without her usual flashy outfit. The orange jumpsuit she was wearing didn't do her any good. The judge asked if her lawyer had any comments on the contempt charge. The lawyer stated that, in his opinion, she did not know that she was supposed to appear in court that day. The judge asked if the lawyer had repeatedly reminded her of this during the settlement of the case, to which he confirmed. The judge questioned the lawyer's competence in believing in the client's truthfulness, to which he replied in the negative. The judge then asked the client to plead guilty, to which she replied, "I don't mind, Your Honor." The judge sentenced her to 5 years, followed by serving her sentence in a state prison. "Your Honor," her lawyer interjected, "isn't this too cruel?" Judge McDonald replied, "In my opinion, no, but she has the right to appeal." As for the divorce, it was decided in favor of Mr. Masters. She has lost all rights to the property left over from their marriage since the day she left the state with her daughters. He told my lawyer, drop a divorce decree and include a waiver of the required waiting period. "I think your client has been waiting long enough, Your Honor. My client has one last request in hopes that you will consider granting it," my lawyer began. Donald raised an eyebrow curiously. "He recently got engaged to Miss Helen Beard and would like to know if you can hold their civil ceremony when they get married." My lawyer's words made Helen and the girls visibly nervous. I couldn't help but smile because the lawyer and I had foreseen this outcome. The judge congratulated them both, saying with a smile that had been brewing for a long time. He said he would be happy to hold the ceremony. Helen and I clasped hands happily. Adelia's shocked face was still visible on the monitor. Her disbelief was obvious, as she probably expected the maximum 30-day sentence for contempt of court, not this outcome. It must have been incredibly painful for her to find out in court that I was marrying her younger cousin. The judge banged his gavel and declared the hearing closed. When we got up to leave, the judge came up to me and shook my hand. I introduced him to my future wife and daughters with the respect I thought he deserved. He informed them that everything was fine and he was not in the dock at the moment. Before we left, he mentioned that we needed to go fishing together as soon as possible before it got too hot. I've never seen 3 girls so excited in my life. They were all chatting animatedly, filling the courtroom with conversations after such a long silence. I wished I had taken earplugs. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed one couple quietly leave the hall. I was surprised when I realized that it was my mom and dad. I expected to see them last. Memories surfaced of how my father disowned me and broke off our relationship, saying that I was no longer his son. I quickly realized how accurate this statement was. Nothing pleases girls more than asking for help in organizing a wedding. This excitement filled our house when we returned to normal life. Helen decided to put her house up for sale, and Amanda easily joined my staff. Her sharp mind did not go unnoticed by others. Miranda, on the other hand, spent the first week talking to old friends and rebuilding lost connections. Masters Consulting was overworked as it acquired 2 new corporations that needed complete restructuring to survive, as well as a significant cash inflow. Amanda shocked all of us by identifying missed issues that cost our customers millions in potential sales. It took her 3 weeks to fix this flaw, and the subsequent increase in sales was a pleasant surprise for everyone. In the evening, after a hard day, Helen and I lay in bed and talked. We both got used to our new parenting responsibilities. Being in the same boat, she was adjusting to the role of mother, and I was getting used to the role of father again. Her question about starting my own family took me by surprise because I had never thought about it before. But knowing all that she had gone through with me, I couldn't refuse her. I replied with a smile, "Let's wait until our wedding photo shoot, dear. The timing depends on you." Helen's eyes sparkled with excitement as we began to plan our future together. It's clear that neither of us got enough sleep that night, and it's no wonder why. In the end, we exchanged vows on Mother's Day. Amanda was a bridesmaid, Miranda and another niece were bridesmaids, and Chris was my best man. My 2 nephews were the masters of ceremonies at a small event held in the backyard of our house against the background of a serene lake. Helen's brothers took over the preparation of the courtyard for the ceremony, and the judge conducted the wedding ceremony in a beautiful gazebo strewn with spring flowers. When we arrived at the event, the men were wearing blue jeans, cowboy hats, and matching boots, and the ladies were wearing fancy dresses. Helen looked stunning in a classic white wedding dress, and her bridesmaids wore stunning yellow dresses. The big family did their best by cooking a delicious barbecue. Later in the evening, our patio turned into a lively dance floor with live music. Meanwhile, life went on in full swing. When the criminal trial of Adelia and Ronald began, Ronald filed for divorce while my civil lawyer was negotiating with the opposing attorney and the Bank of America legal team on this case. I was looking forward to our first Father's Day and our new family. I knew that my wife and daughters were planning something special, but the details remained a mystery to me. On Father's Day, Helen and I woke up early to spend the morning at the lake and fishing in our canoe. The fish pecked willingly, and it didn't take us long to catch our share. As soon as the fly sank into the water when we were about to return to the shore, Helen discreetly handed me a postcard that she kept with her. I eagerly unfolded it and saw the inscription, "Happy Father's Day, Daddy. We're pregnant and it's a boy." Overcome with joy, I jumped up in excitement, causing the canoe to capsize. We lost all our belongings, fish, fishing rods, and a box of gear soaked through. We swam back to shore where the girls, who already knew about Helen's news, found my revelation amusing. It took some time for the chaos to subside, and we were able to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. My whole worldview changed when I witnessed the birth of my son. He was born with a loud scream and weighed 7 pounds. I surprised my mother when I urgently called her and asked her to come to the maternity ward of the hospital. When she arrived, I hurried her to Helen's room where she was holding our son in her arms. "His name is Colin Richard," I announced. My mother was beside herself with excitement. That was her grandfather's name. As for my father and me, we still don't communicate. I gave him a chance, but he hasn't taken it yet. He is not taking any action at the moment, but every new morning brings a new beginning and life goes on.